Hey there, it's Monica Brooks, and you may notice something new, and that is the title of this podcast. I want to share a quick story with you before we get started. I was recently working on a puzzle with my son, and he put a piece in, and he said, "This looks like it fits." And it did look like it fit, but it did not. It was not the correct piece. And I thought of that as I started to feel this big shift in my life where things felt and looked okay, but it really didn't fit. And that's why I have changed the name of my podcast to Becoming a Better You. Although leadership is a passion of mine, I felt so pigeonholed, like I was trying to make everything work under this one topic when there are so many other things I am passionate about, and I felt so restricted. I love leadership, but I also love self-improvement. I love talking about wellness. I love talking about mindfulness. So this podcast has shifted and I was ready for it. Like I knew it was coming. I just didn't know when and what that would look like. So without further ado, here is the new introduction to the podcast. And then I'm going to share some reflections about what I have learned this past year, because this past year was a lot of growth for me in areas I didn't even realize I needed to improve on. So if you're ready, then let's do this. Welcome to the Becoming a Better You podcast. My name is Monica Brooks, and I'm a self-improvement enthusiast who is eager to share tips and strategies to help you become the best version of yourself. As an inspirational speaker who transitioned from a corporate career, I'm here to guide you on your journey towards enhancing your overall human experience. If you're ready to take the first step towards becoming the best version of yourself, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. So I want to talk to you about a lot of my learnings this past year, but I first want to share another story. This past Friday, I was at a healthcare company doing a presentation for them / workshop, and I didn't promote my podcast. I hadn't changed it yet, but I did put in my bio that, I'm a inspirational speaker, I'm a podcast host, and afterward she came up to me and she said, "Hey, what's the name of your podcast?" And I was like, "Oh, it's the Monica Brooks podcast." And she's like, "Oh, what do you talk about?" And I was like, "Leadership." And she was like, "Oh." I think she was wanting something more anyway. And that's when I was like, you know what? I just need to do this. Like I mentioned, this is something that has been on my mind probably for half the year, trying to make all of this fit under leadership. And it just wasn't working. So I honestly feel really good about this shift, really good about the change. And I'm glad that I listened to that inner voice that said, this doesn't feel completely authentic. And now, as I was like recording the introduction today, I'm like, this feels so good. I'm so excited. I did, however, regardless of what podcast, the old name, new name, I knew I wanted to talk about my learnings for 2023. I reflected back on this past year, and I have grown in a lot of ways, and in ways that I didn't even realize I had a problem in. And that was really hard for me to accept, because I want to be great at everything. And I know that is not realistic. I know that, like I know it, but I'm always achieving to be the best possible speaker, the best possible facilitator, the best possible friend, wife, mother, you name it. I am a high achiever. So for me to admit I had problems in certain areas, that was really big for me. I don't think I'm perfect at all. I consider myself a recovering perfectionist, to where there's that nice balance of knowing perfection does not really even exist. So I want to get started talking about one of my biggest learnings this year, and that was regarding boundaries. I lacked, and in some ways still lack, healthy boundaries. In the aspect for me personally was my relationships that I had with other people. I have learned how important boundaries are. And when you don't set boundaries for yourself, whether that is in a relationship or at work, you're only hurting yourself. So I want to talk first about my personal experience, but I also want to talk to you about how you can set healthy boundaries with friendships, relationships with other people, and also boundaries at work. If this is something that you feel you struggle with, you're always turned on, you can't turn it off, you're thinking about work when you go to bed, you're thinking about it when you wake up, it's causing you anxiety, let's talk about that as well. So let's first start with how I came to the realization that I lacked boundaries in friendships. If there is anything that I truly despise in relationships, it's holding grudges. I grew up with my aunts and uncles. My mom is from a big family. They were always holding grudges. There was always someone not talking to someone else. There was always drama. Not everyone would come to family reunions. And it drove me crazy. I didn't understand how they could do that because they were family. And I've learned as I've grown up that a lot of people have this issue. And I've narrowed it down to they never learned how to express their emotions in a healthy way or how to deal with someone who disagrees with you. So in my head, I've always hated grudges. I've always felt it was childish, ignoring people, all of that stuff. I had gone to the sound bath. If you're not familiar with the sound bath, it's you don't undress or anything. It's not like water. It's just sounds laying there, the vibrations of the bowls. It's such a relaxing experience. But this person that was leading it kicked it off with an opening that said basically that the issues we have with other people most of the time is issues we have within ourselves. And I'm like, bullshit. Like, no, I'm not a selfish person. I'm not this or that. But I believe it now. And the reason I tell you this is because I lacked boundaries to the point to where I started shutting people out of my life because they disrespected me in some way or something had happened and I never learned how to express my emotions in a healthy way. And I have learned through this that having relationships, having friendships requires a lot of courage to talk about when things don't go right or talk about times you've been offended or talk about times when your feelings were hurt. I realized I was doing exactly what my mom's family was doing as well. I was cutting people out. I was ignoring them. I wouldn't outright ignore someone. I just didn't reach out anymore. I just kind of I had to stop completely because my boundaries that I never really had were crossed. It was just a feeling that I had and I didn't like it. And I was shocked when I realized I was doing exactly what my mom's family was doing. The thing that always drove me crazy, the thing that I've always despised, because it was easier for me to cut people out rather than have a heart-to-heart conversation with them. The other part of this, though, is I didn't have boundaries when it came to not just relationships, but my energy. And I had learned that it wasn't always going to be reciprocated. So I allowed everyone to have access to me. If you needed help, I was going to help you because I truly love helping people. And I have learned that is also a flaw because I didn't know how to say no. Again, because I didn't have boundaries. And I began to have this feeling like certain things didn't align with my passion. I just wanted to help people. That was it. And so I ended up getting burnt out. I was hurting myself because I never learned how to say no. I am a people pleaser. That is not okay. And so I came to this point where I was allowing so many people access to me that I just broke down and I couldn't do it anymore. And I just went silent on a lot of people. And it wasn't anything, I want to say, intentional that had happened necessarily. It was more of me, my issue with myself, not being able to say no. And so I broke this past year. So I want to talk to you about how I created boundaries and what that looks like. I have a visual here, and I feel like I want to make this into a super affordable course for people that other people can take to learn how they can create healthy boundaries as well. For me specifically, I'm going to talk about friendships, what my boundaries are, how I created them, and how I have broken these up into different sections about where people stand in my circle of boundaries. So I first had to think about what qualities do I have to offer a friend? And it came down to 3. Strong. I mean, there's more, of course, but I didn't want to list everything. So I said, okay, top 3. Here's what I can offer. I can offer you trust. I can offer you loyalty, and I can offer you respect. But then trust wasn't enough. And I changed that to feeling safe. You are safe with me when you talk to me. You don't have to worry about me saying something to somebody else, me gossiping about you. You riding in a car with me. And I know that sounds crazy, but I had this friend who was a reckless driver, would race other people on the streets with me in the car. I never said anything, again, because I was a people pleaser slash still am. And I did not feel safe. I want people to know that you are safe with me. You don't have to give disclaimers like don't say anything to anybody because you know me and you know that I would never, ever do anything like that. Okay, so there's my boundaries. But now, this is what I look for in other people. These top three, that's exactly what I'm looking for in friends because I know my energy and what I give you can be reciprocated back to me. And that's where I failed in boundaries was I could give. And I was empty. I was like, oh, I have nothing left to give, and you're not able to give me what I gave you. One of my gifts that I know that I have, that I am really good at, and I want you to think about your gifts as well, but this is mine. I can make you feel seen. I will listen to you intently. I will know exactly what you need to hear to help you through whatever you're going through. I am a great listener, and I need to be seen also in relationships. And I think that's where I was lacking in so many relationships. You couldn't give me what I could give you. So now I have my top three. Hey, for you to be in my close circle, you have to be willing to give that back to me as well. So on my paper, I have a circle, and it's called my ride or die. Die is kind of morbid sometimes, especially after having cancer, but that's what I consider it. And here is the qualities of my ride or die friends. My ride or die are people that I know I can call anytime. I can call you and vent. We can cry. We can laugh. I know that they're going to be there no matter what, no questions asked. The energy is reciprocated. We do not judge each other. We do not give disclaimers. It is truly a safe place. And we do not have petty gossip, right? None of my friends in my close circle sit around and talk shit about people. We don't do it. It adds zero value to our lives. And I absolutely love that because I just don't like talking bad about people. Okay, so that's my close circle. My ride or die. Okay, so now I have another circle outside of that. All right, those are my friends. Okay, so this is me with boundaries. My friends, we don't miss a beat. Doesn't matter how much time has passed. We can get together once a year, twice a year, whatever it is. We can hang out. We can catch up. We can grab dinner. And we know that nothing is personal. So if we haven't seen each other in 6 months, it's like, well, why haven't you called me? Well, the phone works both ways. No, none of that. Okay? Mature people. And then I have another circle outside of that. So we have the inner circle, medium, and then the bigger circle. And those are just like, I would say more like acquaintances. Like I know you, you know me. And that's pretty much it with the outer circle. It doesn't have to be anything. I could text you, you could text me, but that's it. But here's the thing about these boundaries and this circle idea. It's like having a whiteboard and each person is a magnet, okay? And they're scattered all over your board. Here's the thing that is so important about that is you're going to need to be able to move people, okay? Not everyone is going to stay your ride or die. Seasons change, life changes, things happen. You need to be able to move people out of that circle and perhaps other ones in. That's okay. I am not friends with one single person from high school, mostly because I started at a new high school my sophomore year. A lot of those friendships were already established since kindergarten, and plus I was really, really shy. But life changes, things happen, and that's okay. I don't think you're meant to be friends with everyone for the rest of your life. So having these boundaries can help keep a visual on where you stand and where your friends stand as well. So now that I have these boundaries written down, I encourage you also write these down. It's so important to reflect on them and to make sure that you're giving also the same energy that people are giving you. So I hope this part helped you visualize how to create some healthy boundaries in your life, especially when it comes to relationships with other people. Now I want to talk to you about boundaries at work. And I think these are really important because I think through the pandemic, we were all turned on all the time, right? Like we had access to work within our houses, within our homes, and we didn't know how to turn it off. What will happen though is you will get sucked in. But I think another thing that happens that a lot of people don't realize is that your ego gets fed. It feels good to be needed. It feels good to be wanted. It feels so good to have solutions to people's problems. But because of that, you never get to be turned off. People have access to you all the time because you lack boundaries at work. Another way you can look at this too is when people come to you to solve their problems, right? As a leader, so I'm talking leadership again because I'm passionate. It's not going away. As leaders, it can feel good to be the problem solver. Hey, the printer's broken. I mean, do people still print? I don't know. We'll say fax machine just for shits and giggles. The fax machine's broken. And you go over and try to fix it. What did you teach them? You taught them nothing. You taught them to rely on you. Therefore, they will continue to come to you and your ego will continue to be fed. And boy, does that feel good. It's the same thing with parenting also. Like I that's another thing I love talking about is parenting. It's the same thing with children. As long as you keep fixing their problems and making their beds and picking up their clothes, they're going to continue to rely on you to do those things, therefore never being taught how to do them on their own. It feels good as a mom. It feels good as a dad, like to be needed and wanted. And look at me, my child needs me. No, you're just filling your ego and enabling them to depend on you the rest of their lives. And nobody needs that. Our society needs people who know how to fix problems. So learn how to create those boundaries for yourself. Create office hours. Turn off your emails at a certain time. Don't check your email first thing in the morning. Create healthy habits. What is one thing you can start doing today? Like if you find yourself picking up the phone and checking work email as soon as you get out of bed, create a healthy boundary. Say, you know what? I'm going to read something encouraging for 5 minutes. Heck, start with 1 minute if you think it's going to be hard before I jump into work. I'm going to go for a 5-minute walk before I jump into my emails. Ground yourself first. Create that healthy boundary so you don't get sucked in all day. Okay, I hope this first episode on this new topic has been encouraging for you and you've taken some helpful information to help you start leading a better life and becoming the best version of yourself. Until next time.